What's going on, Gotcha Gang? Kawaii50 here with another FGO video. Be sure to like and subscribe if this video helps you. And gang, after a whole content string I was just not interested in at all. I did not touch Himeji Castle, had no intention of touching Himeji Castle, completely ignored it. We are finally back on to what I consider some interesting content, and with the Oni Land event comes the magnificent Shuten Douji caster. Now, magnificent in terms of aesthetics, I'm a huge fan of Shuten Douji, but is she magnificent in terms of kit? Well, that's the question we're about to answer. As always, let's start the video going over Shuten Douji's stats. Her 11,025 HP at max level is decent. Not really a lot to say about that, but her attack is what draws the most attention to her. At 9,538 attack, Shuten Douji has some of the highest attack out of a lot of the casters in the game. She even beats Scheherazade in terms of attack, which is absolutely insane. And her attack stat is going to become more relevant when we get into actually how you want to use her. Her NP gain is also pretty impressive, which is something we honestly expect at this point when it comes to a caster class servant. The 3 arts cards in her deck means that she can arts Brave Chain completely by herself, and if you're able to feed some crit stars into her, even though her star absorption is you are going to be able to refill a bunch of NP off of her chains. 4 hits on arts card and 4 hits on a quick card if you have to resort to that. Seems pretty good to me. Out of Shuten Douji's 3 passive skills, her most notable one is the one we want every single caster to have. Territory Creation Rank B, which increases arts card effectiveness by 8%. I hate to say that I had to hope that a caster was going to have Territory Creation, but she's got it, and I am happy. Shuten's first skill is Heartbreak Rank A+. This applies NP Seal to a single enemy for 1 turn, but also decreases their critical rate by a huge 30 to 50% for 3 turns. Gang, I know a lot of people like to sometimes sleep on decreasing critical rate, but if you're bringing her along for a challenge quest, that actually ends up being very helpful. I'm sure a lot of people died to some very unfortunate crits in the recent Guildfest event, so to have some way to mitigate that chance to crit is going to help your team's overall survival in the long run. That being said, I still think this skill is worth maxing last. Just because you're mainly going to be using it for the NP seal most of the time, unless it's with challenge quests, and the crit chance bonus is still really good at a 30%. Shuten's second skill is Break Rod Rank B. This increases her Buster and Arts card effectiveness by 20 to 30%, and her Star Gather rate by 300 to 500%. And this is also on a 6-turn cooldown. Gang, this is Shuten's main source of burst damage, so you absolutely want to do your best to try and max this skill first. Yes, I might as well just tell you now before we get deeper in the video, Shuten Douji caster is an offensive single target caster, and we're going to want her build her thusly. So, it stands to reason that her main damage dealing, her main critical damage dealing skill is the one we max first. Shuten's final skill is Demonic Nature of Oni Guard Rank A. This increases the attack of all allies by 10 to 20% for 3 turns, and also lets her deal extra 30 to 50% damage to demonic type enemies. Which, there is a few, so this buff is not as useless as one might think. I know a lot of people seem to think that with the type-based buffs, but you're mainly going to be using this for the overall attack booster. Charisma in general just ain't a bad buff at all, so go ahead and max this second. Plus, it helps her own personal damage too. Now, Shuten Douji's Buster type Noble Phantasm, which yes means it benefits from Merlin, is Goho Shoujo Kuzuryu Osatsu ranked C++. This gives her sure hit before damage is dealt, so evade means nothing. It also deals a very impressive amount of damage to the enemy. We are talking 600 to 1000%. But let's be real, you're going to NP5 her, so it's 1000%. And also on Overcharge, it inflicts poison to an enemy for 5 turns, and that's 1000 to 5000 damage a turn if you're willing to sink that much into Overcharge. That is substantial, and Shuten Douji's Noble Phantasm is not only the most impressive part of her kit, but the fact that it is the most impressive part of a character's kit, and it's on a character you're pretty much guaranteed to get to NP5, well, that's just excellent. When it comes to craft essences for Shuten Douji, I would be just completely incorrect if I didn't recommend NP damage for her over all else. Slap your strongest NP strength craft essence on her, and you'll find that she will put out some pretty decent numbers. So my foremost recommendation absolutely has to be the Black Grail. It is just the best NP damage CE in the game. If you don't have that and have another 5-star option, well, Heaven's Feel, though it's less damage, is still effective and gives us exactly what we want. And always we're looking for a budget option. That budget option I recommend to you is Hero Ellie's Adventure. Hero Ellie's Adventure gives her Buster Card effectiveness as well as that NP strength boost, so that's going to help her exponentially. Now, Caster Shuten's a damage-dealing caster, so she is a very selfish character that wants the entire team to be built around her. So I basically am stuck recommending support-type characters for her. Merlin, of course, being your best bet. You can, of course, sub in Nightingale or Helena Blavatsky. If you don't have Merlin, they work pretty well as well. And if you're looking for your freebie options, look no further than William Shakespeare, or if you're looking to keep her alive, Leonidas. Any of these characters are going to increase her Buster Card effectiveness, therefore affect her Noble Phantasm, and help her deal more damage. And finally, for our command code recommendations, you guessed it, we want damage. Damage, damage, damage. So I've got to recommend Da Vinci Chin first and foremost, giving that huge NP damage boost. Yes, you'll have to use the Noble Phantasm second in your chain, but I promise the 15% NP damage up is gonna be worth it. You'll see. If you're looking for a more generalized damage dealing card, I can highly recommend Linchpin of Heaven from Gilfest. Gang, Linchpin of Heaven puts in work. I put this thing on my Summer BB, and her Buster cards are dealing good damage. I can promise you that. That's going to ring true for Shuten Douji Caster as well. And of course, if you are bringing her along to fight demonic type enemies, if you are making use of her third skill secondary buff, well then I've got to recommend Lady in Waiting of Wisteria. This increases damage against demonic enemies by 20%. It'll end up increasing your damage output against them just a little bit. Remember, it's still on one card. When it comes to Shuten Douji Caster, everyone, she is a strange beast. It's always strange seeing those offensive-oriented casters, and I find myself comparing her more than anything to Queen of Sheba. And if Queen of Sheba has a place on your team, Shuten Douji Caster will easily occupy that place on your team as well. She does have a definite edge over Queen of Sheba due to the fact that she can easily get NP5, but she's also Buster, whereas Sheba is Arts. So maybe you're using Sheba and you have a stronger Tamamo no Mai over a Merlin, or just Tamamo no Mai and no Merlin. And in that case, Sheba would definitely work. Shuten Douji is also just a little more bursty than Sheba, and she doesn't really have that crit damage augmenting buff. So that is definitely something to consider. But that is the closest comparison I can draw. Shuten Douji is still a phenomenal pick for a single target caster. She won't beat Sieg in farming, but she'll beat him in Challenge Quest, that's for sure. As always, gang, I want to know what you think when it comes to Shuten Douji Caster, so go ahead and let me know if Oniland is going to be your absolute priority down in the comment section below. If you have any other fun team comps, maybe you played on JP for a bit, you got Shuten Douji Caster back when she came out over there, and you found something that was really fun to use, well, go ahead and tell the community about that down in the comments as well. If you want to talk more FGO, the Discord is always open. You can hit me up on Patreon as well as my Twitch channel. I hope you're all having a phenomenal day. I'll see y'all in the next one.